You can use arrays for each method to perform particular task on each element of the array. I have numbers array here, which is scores array, and then I'm using for loop to print each element of that scores array in console log here. But instead of using for loop, I want to use the scores for each method. Let's try to do that. For that, I'm gonna say scores dot for each, and when I try to use it, it's asking for a parameter which is not a regular parameter. It's not asking for number or a string. It's asking for a callback function which has parameters like value, index, and array. So first we'll have to create a function which will get executed for each element of the array and then pass that function in this for each method. To create a function, I'm going to go to top of the page here and then create a function called as print, because we are printing each element in the console log. And then I'm going to write a statement which is going to be console log. We don't have the value that we want to print, but if I hover over this method, the for each method passes each element as the first parameter to this callback function. So I can receive that element in my print method here, and then I can pass it to console log to get printed in the log. Now the only thing that I need to do is pass this function that I want to get executed for each element in the scores array. Then we don't need this for loop. I can just call scores for each print, and that will print all the elements in the array. If I refresh the page, click on submit, that's going to print all the elements here. If I hover over this method again, the second parameter is index. That means if you want to get hold of index of each element in the array, you can do that too. For that, I'm going to catch that index in the second parameter. And if I want to print that index on the page, then I can concatenate with the value. And if I refresh the page, click on submit, it's going to concatenate the index of each element with its value. Now, before I check out the third parameter, which is the array, I would like to convert this function into an arrow function. To do that, I'm going to remove this function keyword and set print equal to value, and then use arrow sign here to show this is the definition of the function. Now this function has only one statement, so I can get rid of the curly braces. I don't need that. Now I have only one statement, which is printing value in the index of the array in the console log. If I refresh the page, click on submit, that's going to work too. The best part about ForEach, you can pass the definition of the function instead of passing the reference to the function. So I can literally cut the definition of the function and pass it in my ForEach, and then I don't need this line. The only thing that I'm printing here is I'm passing value and index and then printing those in the console log. If I refresh the page, click on submit, that's going to print the elements and their indexes. Now let's check the third parameter here, which is the array, which lets us update a particular array. Let's say if I want to multiply 100 to each element in the array before printing it in the console log, I can use for each method for that. I can pass this array in it for modification. Let's try to do that. For that, I'm going to copy paste this line again and pass scores as the third parameter, because we would like to modify that. And then in this statement, I'm going to modify this scores array. I'm going to say scores, and if I want to modify each element, I can take the index from here. So I'm going to pass the index here, and then I would like to update it with value multiplied by 100. So each value will be passed here, and I want to multiply the value by 100. And now my scores array will get updated before printing it. So if I refresh the page, click on submit, all the elements are going to get multiplied by 100 and then get printed here. If I change this to 10 and then refresh the page and click on submit, it's going to get multiplied by 10 before printing it. So you can use arrow functions and for each to write less code and make sense out of your statements. In the next section, I'm going to talk about filter and map functions.